One of the things we read in our scripture this morning, and one of the things that is a primary tenet of the Reformed tradition, is that we have the priesthood of all believers. It doesn't mean just the pastor is the minister, it means all of you are ministers. It doesn't mean that you all have to go to seminary. It means that you all are ministers in whatever it is that you do daily. You all have gifts, as I read a little while ago, and your faith is a daily thing, it's not a Sunday thing. So as the panel talks with us this morning, I want you to think about, again, what are your gifts? How are you using your gifts? How would you express your faith? And how are you sharing your faith with one another? I think one of the ways we build community within our 4th Street family is by sharing our faith with one another. And Presbyterians, generally speaking, are not very good about that, at least not verbally. There are many ways to share faith, but verbally is one of them. And we also need to be thinking how we share faith when we go outside the doors, in our job lives, but just in our community. How do we partner with our neighbors sharing faith? Sometimes by the way we live our lives, but also by how we share our faith verbally. One exercise I've had the session do on occasion is pretend that you're at Starbucks and someone sits down beside you and you're reading a book and they say something to you and somehow the issue of church comes up and you mention you're a member of 4th Street. And they want to know, why do you bother going to 4th Street? I don't think church is worthwhile. I think they're just a bunch of hypocrites. Without using any religious terminology, how would you talk to them about your faith? Because many, many young people today are unchurched. If you say Jesus, they don't too much really know what you're talking about. If you talk about the Bible, they don't know what the Bible says. If you talk about religious words, they don't know what they mean. You say cross and you think they know what you're talking about. They don't really. So how would you talk to someone about your faith without using religious words? And how would you share your faith out and about? And that's going to become important as we start sharing and partnering in our neighborhood. We've been talking about the Ruth Ellis Center, and that partnership is forming. We are hopefully going to, in about a month, start a partnership with the international students at Wayne State, and perhaps other colleges as well. We're hoping to do something with Catherine Ferguson, which officially has closed, but we're hoping it comes back in some kind of reiteration. And also the Second Mile. How do we partner with Mark Campbell and whoever comes into this building here? How do we partner with the new business that's coming into Dan Gilbert's building next door? And there's many other buildings if you saw the paper this morning. So as the panel comes this morning, I also was listening to Rebecca as she was singing. She was singing the words in that second verse, walking with Jesus all the way. Walking with Jesus all the way means a whole lot more than an hour on Sunday morning. It means 24/7, 365, 365 and a quarter, okay? So as the panel comes, I would like you to turn to the front of the bulletin, and as the panel is coming up, let's read together the quote that is from 1 Peter there. Like living stones, if I could take the end chair. So this is our panel that currently are employed in a lot of different kinds of ways, doing different things during the week. Whatever you see them doing on Sundays or maybe at committee meetings during the week, they do other things in the rest of their life. So I'm going to ask each of them some different questions, and the first one is to very briefly just describe to you what they do. This is a way to help you, first of all, just get to know each other better, because sometimes I don't think you know each other very well. So very briefly, if you can just describe what it is that you do. How do you spend your work day?
Good morning. Can you hear me? Good morning. My name is Tracy Lemus. I currently, of many jobs that I've had, I currently transport automobile injured patients to their doctor appointments.
I'm Tom Edwards. I'm currently an associate dean in the College of Education at Wayne State. I've been a professor at Wayne State for 20 years. Before that, I was a high school math teacher in the Buffalo, New York public schools for 24 years. I'll be starting my 48th year in public education well, I guess I'm starting it now because the old term is over.
Good morning, I'm Craig McLean. I'm a mental health and substance abuse clinician, and my primary job is with the military. I work with military personnel doing pre- and post-deployment mental health evaluations, and I also am a part-time outpatient clinician at St. John Eastwood Clinic.
Good morning. My name is Jessie Uduma. I work for the city of Detroit as a senior accountant, and I'm attached to fire department.
Okay, thank you. Now, one of the things I've asked them to talk about specifically is what kind of issues and decisions do they have to face in their jobs on a regular basis? Not that unusual thing that came up that makes a great story at a dinner party, but what are the kinds of decisions and issues they have to face on a pretty regular basis?
Well, first of all, excuse me. I'm in charge of budget. I create contract purchase orders and standard purchase orders. I process the vendors' invoices for payment. And I run the cost center responsibility reports to track the actual expenditures. You know about what is going on with the city, the emergency manager, the bankruptcy thing. So the emergency manager has warned all the departments to stick to their budget, to count every penny spent, to cut off all wasting spending. So the problem I have working with the budget, tracking all those informations to come up with a balanced budget is that some people are still operating in the old city business. They are still doing whatever they want to do, buying stuff without budget, buying stuff without authorization. So when I run my report, I have problem doing the reconciliation. And when I present it to my supervisors, I get blamed for that. Oh, why did you let it happen? Why didn't you tell anybody they should not do this? And some of this information come to me after the math. It's not like I was there when they were buying the stuff. So it's a problem that I face every day because the emergency manager has warned that every penny, everything you get has to be authorized. It has to be in the budget. If they are not in the budget, you have to write me and let me know why you have to purchase it. I have to authorize it first. So it has been a problem. At times it makes me feel I'm stupid. At times they start doubting whether I know what I'm doing, and it makes me angry too. So when I deal with this situation, I pray a lot. Because, everybody now in the city, we're on the edge. You might lose your job right now for doing something that is not right. So what I do is I pray. I keep on praying every day. Anytime I go to work, something happens, so I keep on praying. But there is one Christian teaching that has really helped me to overcome some of these things. So that is love. I have this in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 4. He said that love is patient, and love is kind, love is not rude, and so on and so forth. So these are the things that help me when those individuals keep on doing those things that they are not supposed to do. It helps me to calm down and say, well, it's not about me. Whatever happens, I know God is in control. Thank you.
Decisions and issues that you face on a regular basis.
The decision I face, like I said, is having problem doing my reconciliation. I cannot do this reconciliation because if I reconcile, I'm in deficit. And this is one of the things that the emergency man said, oh, nobody should go over the budget. You can't be in a deficit. We are already having our problem. So each one of you should account for every penny you spend. So I'm having this problem of reconciliation every day in and day out.
In the military job, the people that I speak to have been deployed to combat, usually Afghanistan or Iraq, and they are calling to be evaluated as to their mental status post-deployment. As you can imagine, if you've been in a combat situation, this affects you to one degree or another. The most amazing thing to me is that we human beings have a rather incredible capacity for tolerating stress. So the decisions that I have to make are centered around, is the person I'm talking to damaged enough, if you will, that they need professional help? Or are they coping fairly adequately on their own? And God has helped me through a lot of those situations, believe me.
Mine is fairly simple, however, is just as important as any other job. One of the issues and decisions that I face is typically driving a patient safely to their destination, to and from home, as well as their medical facility, because they've been traumatized once before in an automobile accident. I have to make sure that I'm doing the speed limit, I'm not going too fast, I'm not reinventing what already happened to them again, so they can get to their destination safely without replaying what had already happened to them and traumatized them.
Well, I've only been in administration for 2 years, so rather than talk about what I do now, I'm going to talk about what I did formerly as a teacher, and I'm going to focus more on what I did as a high school teacher, but when I became a college professor preparing future teachers, a lot of the things that I did carried over. So the first thing I'll talk about is long before I ever read the term role model anywhere, I remember reading a piece in one of the professional journals that essentially talked about the job of being a public school teacher, and talked about that it went beyond teaching children content, that one of our primary roles was to show children how an adult behaves in a free society. And that obviously stuck with me because it's a long time ago that I read that. And so in my work in the classroom, I tried to do that. I tried to behave in the way that an adult should behave in a free society. I'm sure I wasn't 100% successful, but I'd like to think I was 90% successful. And then in teaching, there are a number of decisions that have to be made. You have to decide how you're going to address children's behavior issues, because they're always there. I don't care where you teach. Kids are kids, and some kids behave, and some kids usually behave, but not always behave. Let's put it that way. So I had you have to decide how you're going to handle that, and in a way that will demonstrate to kids the way that people ought to behave toward one another. Probably the only thing about teaching that I never much cared for, and still don't, is grading. It's just not very much fun. So of course you have to make decisions on what grade does each one of these students get. And I always tried to run a balance between what I thought was fair, and yet give a grade in a way that I could be gracious. The best teacher I ever saw told me when I was a beginning teacher that You never give up on any kid. You never give up on any kid. And so those are some of the decisions and some of the ways that I approached them in the classroom.
They were specifically then asked to talk with you about how faith makes a difference in the decisions and the issues they face, but also just how faith makes a difference in their work life in general. Now, some of them have alluded to that a little bit, but may have more to say on that. In whatever wording you want.
I've got it, so I'll get it over with. I have one vignette, I think, that from my experience as a high school teacher that kind of talks to some of the issues I just talked about. So, once upon a time, on a day when I gave a test in the last class, one of my softball players slid a note into her exam, and when I was looking at the examinations that evening, the note told me that a copy of the exam had been stolen out of the classroom and distributed among a group of students during lunch. So what to do? Fortunately, I gave the exam on a Thursday, and so I got to talk to them on Friday. And so what to say? And I like to think that my faith is partly the reason for, I always like to try to, in a situation like that or anything similar, to try to give people an opportunity to do the right thing. And so I talked at length about how disappointed I was. And reminded them of what some possible consequences would be, and closed with what I just said. You know, I could continue my investigation further, and that might lead to expulsion. This, by the way, was the honors school in Buffalo. They didn't want to get expelled. But I said, but before I do that, I always like to give people a chance to do the right thing. And of course, that was Friday, the test having been on Thursday. Boy, was that perfect timing, because then they had the whole week for their conscience to work on them. We were an early school. We started, I think we started, our classes started at 8:30, as I remember. And I like to be in my room by 8 o'clock, take some time to relax and get ready for the day. 8:05, the first student appeared to tell me that he had been one of the group. And I said, well, of course, there have to be some consequences, or otherwise your confession would be trivialized. So you get a 0 for the test, and as far as I'm concerned, that's it. You had a bad test, you had a bad day. And then he left, and the steady stream continued. So that by 20 minutes after 8 that morning, 6 of the 7 culprits had come in and talked to me and admitted what they had done. So I like to think that they did that, not so much out of fear of what might happen as out of conscience working on them, out of the opportunity that I think from my behavior in the classroom all year long, they trusted in the fact that I might act in a gracious manner if they came in and talked to me. And that's the way it played out.
I agree. Conscience does play. Some of the situations, again, are real simple with me, is arriving on time and getting the patients there on time. And a lot of time I have to take more than one patient to their appointment. However, it may leave another patient late getting to their appointment. Some patients aren't too happy with that, and they express, their concern. And I try to rationalize with others, letting them know that I'm trying and that it's no favoritism, and that we're all here for the same reason, to get to our appointments. And I believe that me being with those people, they're also teaching me something as well, just interacting with them. They're teaching me, I'm listening, they're telling me things, I'm learning, and I'm hoping the things that I tell them, they are also learning from each other. I believe we were all put together for a reason, whether it's in a van transporting to a medical facility or if we're in a congregation with others. And me just letting them know that, we're all get there safe. We're all going to get on time. We're all going to be treated, but we also have to be patient. And when we start discussing patience and understanding and that the kindness of others and respecting others, I believe the faith kicks in for us all. I understand their needing to be there on time. I understand their urgency, but they also have to understand someone else has an urgency. Someone else have to be patient, and that someone else got to get there on time. So I think we have those conversations, and we come to the realization that we're all here together for each other.
Let me start off by saying that the job I have at Eastwood, the part-time job, which used to be my full-time job, is a psychotherapist doing direct mental health and substance abuse treatment with the patient in the office. The military job is telephonic. I receive calls through the day from the service members, and via computer I tie into their military medical records and I update those. And the contrast between the two is when the person is sitting in the office, I have not only what they're telling me verbally, but I have lots of nonverbal communication that I can use to do an assessment. When you're simply listening to somebody on the telephone, it's a whole different ballgame. And all I can do is go by what I'm hearing, and I don't have all that other stuff to use. That's been a challenge, but an interesting one. And my hearing skills have developed in a way I never thought they would. I think one of the important things is that I do, and that we all need to do, is listen to people. People are used to talking, they're not used to listening. It's one of the problems in society today. So, in addition to that, when I talk to the service members on the phone, I evaluate them, I make a referral if I feel that's appropriate. This becomes part of their medical record. Their command people follow up, and if I refer someone, they are expected to go and get help. And if they don't, they're in trouble through their command. You don't mess around in the Army or the other military departments. One of the things that I will frequently close my eyes and pray is if I'm evaluating somebody and I really feel that they need to be evaluated more thoroughly, whether it be about a substance abuse issue, a mental health issue, that I can present that to them in such a way that I can, if you will, hook them, help them to see how this will benefit them, so that they will agree to do that voluntarily rather than simply be forced to, which is never a good situation. And I had a young man earlier this week that I spoke to who had a multitude of problems. He was drinking a lot. He had rather significant post-traumatic stress disorder, and I suspected he had traumatic brain injury, although he'd never been evaluated for that, because when he went to the VA post-deployment, he never acknowledged a lot of the TBI symptoms. And I believe that God put the words in my mouth, and by the end of the phone call, he was able to agree to going to be evaluated. And God is in our lives every day if we choose to see that. That's up to us. And I know he's been there an awful lot for me, not just in that way, but in many others.
My faith play a major role in what I do every day. So some of the things I do, the grants, accounting, is like a grant from the state or the Fed, and is fee for service. So it's on reimbursement basis. So if you perform, before you do that, you have to give the state or the Fed the budget, what you intend to do. And if you accomplish that, the next year you will have increase. They will increase your grant money. So one time, one of the administrators came to me. We couldn't use up the money. She said, well, what we'll do now is we can just pay off these people so that next year we have more money. I came home, I talked to my family. It was like, and I have a good neighbor who is a lawyer. I brought that up to say, no, Jessie, don't do that. So that what you should do is let her put everything in writing, which really helped me. She put that in writing and said, well, let's do this, let's do that. So not only my family, the faith I have, not lying about or cooking up figures to make sure that we get more money next year, wasn't something that I would have done as a Christian or somebody who believes in God. When you walk where I am or where I am right now, a lot of things happen. You see people bringing you a procurement, what they need. You look at it, you see personal things like coffee, candies, all that. You start wondering, is it for the city job or is it for what are you using this for? They will not, we need it. So some of the time I will send it to my superiors to make a decision. Some of them I will make the decision and tell them that this is not allowed, because if the emergency manager or anybody come and see that we are buying tea or coffee or water for the division or for something, it still is not looking good for the city. It's the old way of doing things in the city. This is a new city. We have a new city now. So every day you go to work, you encounter so many things that people do that, raise eyebrow and say, oh my God. So coming here, the faith helps a lot in workplace, and like I said, you keep on praying that you will not get into trouble. So that's all I have to say on that.
Okay, keep that a minute. I know we're a little over time, so I'm going to ask if anyone very briefly would like to share a word of wisdom for all of us on how do you deal with spiritual life, how do you keep spiritual life, how do you live spiritual life in the everyday? Any words of wisdom on that you would share with us? If not, that's okay.
Well, what I do every day, I think I'm using city time. There's daily reading I do before I start my day. So it's an online, so you go there, daily bread, and I read it. Most of the time, the reading will just help me for that day. The one I like so much, I'll print them and, paste them on my corner, and, praying, I think, is the thing that is helping me a lot before I start my assignment in the morning.
Anyone else?
I guess all I have to say is just keep in mind that it's not about you, it's about God.
And for the miraculous reasons that we're all here put together, whether or not we're a professor or a senior budgeter or a transporter or a psychologist, whether we work part-time, full-time, contractual, whatever our deal is, it's permanent, though, that we have God inside of us and that we exercise the God that's in us.
Many years ago in Vacation Bible School, I was taught a very simple prayer. Oh God, help me now. I still say that prayer, usually every day, sometimes more than once.
Thank you to our panel. I wish we had time for questions, but we don't. What I'm going to encourage you to do is during the coffee hour to talk with these folks, ask questions, share some of how you do faith in the everyday with them. And if others want to do this sometime, I'd love to have these conversations. So I invite you to please stand, and we're going to sing Sanctuary together 3 times.